It all came to a hush under that wide southern moon, where promises were made and hearts beat louder than the night train. Owen stood by those rusty tracks, bag in hand, waiting on love like folks wait on rain in a dry summer. But time kept ticking, the wind kept whispering, and the bench grew colder with every breath he took. Then, years later, when the town had nearly forgotten, footsteps returned to the very place where dreams once ran wild. And what happened on that night? That's where the story bends like an old porch swing in a storm. Air smelled like wet earth and magnolia flowers. The moon hung low, like a lantern someone forgot to put out. Owen sat on the old wooden bench by the edge of Miller's Creek, his hands fidgeting with the string of his worn leather bag. He had been there for hours, listening to the frogs croak and the trees whisper. He had memorized every sound, every shadow, because this was supposed to be the night he and Taylor would leave everything behind. They had whispered their plan under the old oak tree, with fireflies dancing above them. "No turning back," she had said. "No turning back," he had promised. But the night was growing old, and Taylor hadn't come. He kept checking the dirt path, expecting to see her yellow dress glimmering under the moon. But it was empty, just the sound of crickets and the water flowing. His chest tightened with each passing minute. He thought about knocking on her window, but her father had a shotgun and a temper like a summer storm. He told himself she was just delayed. Maybe she was packing. Maybe she was waiting for her parents to sleep. When the church bells struck midnight, Owen's heart started to crumble. He stood up, walked a few steps toward town, then stopped. He waited again, and again. By the time the rooster crowed from a faraway farm, the only thing that came down that path was a cold wind. Owen whispered her name like a prayer, "Taylor." But the night gave him no answer. The sun rose soft and golden, but Owen's heart was heavy like wet wood. He walked home through the back paths, avoiding the main road where early workers might see his face. His mama was already awake, stirring cornmeal in the kitchen. "Where you been, boy?" she asked, squinting at him. He lied. He said he went fishing. She didn't believe him, but she didn't press. She had lived long enough to know some lies come from broken hearts. Owen washed his face at the well, staring at his reflection in the water. He looked like a boy who had tried to outrun something but got caught. All day he waited for a message. Maybe a note slipped under his door, maybe a knock on the window, but nothing came. In the evening, he went to the oak tree where they had planned everything. The tree stood tall and proud, with carvings of initials from old lovers. He traced their own carving, O+T, with his finger, felt warm under the setting sun. He heard footsteps behind him and turned quickly. But it wasn't Taylor. It was Maybelle, Taylor's cousin, a nosy girl who always carried gossip like a basket of fresh bread. "You waitin' on her?" she asked, tilting her head. Owen didn't answer. She stepped closer. "She ain't comin', you know? She was crying all night." His heart skipped. "Why?" he asked. Maybelle smirked like she knew a secret. "You should talk to her daddy." And just like that, she skipped off, humming a tune that made his stomach twist. That evening, Owen found himself standing near Taylor's house. The white paint was peeling, the porch light flickered, and her father's shadow moved behind the curtains like a restless bear. Taylor's window was shut tight. He picked up a pebble and thought about tossing it gently, like they used to when sneaking out. But before he could, the front door opened. Her father stepped out, tall and wide, with a face like carved stone. "What you doing out here, boy?" the man barked. Owen stammered. I was just passing by." "Passing by my house at night?" He took a step forward, boots crushing the gravel. Owen swallowed hard. "I wanted to talk to Taylor." The man's eyes narrowed. "Taylor don't talk to boys who make foolish promises. You stay away, you hear? But go home, Owen." His voice cracked like thunder. And in that flash of lantern light, Owen saw something strange. Taylor standing behind the curtain, eyes red from crying. She lifted her hand, almost like she wanted to reach for him. But then her father yanked the curtain shut. Owen walked away with his fists clenched, heart thumping. Something was wrong. Taylor hadn't changed her mind. Something or someone had stopped her, and he was going to find out. 2 days passed, and Owen couldn't sit still. He went to the fields, chopped wood, helped his mama at the market, but his thoughts always circled back to that window and those red eyes. Taylor's friends avoided him. Some gave him pitying looks. Others whispered when he passed. Rumors spread like wildfire in a dry summer. Some said Taylor got sick. Some said her father caught her trying to run away. Some even said she had agreed to marry a wealthy man from the next county. Owen didn't believe any of it. He knew Taylor's laughter, her stubbornness, her dreams of the big world beyond the creek. She wouldn't just give up. He started sneaking near her house at night, hoping for a sign. One night, he saw a flicker of candlelight at her window. She opened it a tiny bit and slipped something out. A folded note tied to a ribbon. It floated down like a feather. Owen ran to catch it, heart pounding. He unfolded it under the moonlight. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "I'm sorry. They found out. Please don't hate me. I'll explain if I can." His chest tightened. They found out. Those 3 words rolled in his mind like a wheel stuck in mud. Who were they? Her father? Her mother? Someone else? And how had they found out? He tucked the note under his shirt like a secret flame. He wasn't giving up. Not yet. The next Sunday, the whole town gathered at the church. It was a bright day, but there was a strange tension in the air, like the sky knew something the people didn't. Taylor arrived with her family. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair braided neatly. From afar, she looked calm, but Owen saw her hands trembling when she passed him. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just gave him a quick, pleading look before lowering her eyes. During the sermon, Owen couldn't focus on the preacher's words. He kept watching Taylor, and she kept stealing tiny glances at him, like 2 fireflies trying to find each other in the dark. After the service, he tried to get close, but her father blocked him like a wall. "Not today," the man said, his jaw tight. Owen walked home slowly, but Maybelle ran after him. "You still don't know?" she whispered. "Know what?" he asked. She looked around nervously. Taylor's daddy got plans. Big plans. He's making her marry Mr. Colby, that rich man with the 2 horses. She cried all night about it. The world tilted under Owen's feet. Mr. Colby was twice Taylor's age, a man who smelled of tobacco and arrogance. He clenched his fists. "She doesn't want that," he said. Maybelle shrugged. "Want ain't got nothin' to do with it." As the church bell echoed in the distance, Owen made a decision deep in his bones. He wasn't going to let Taylor's future be chained to a man she didn't love. One way or another, he was going to fight for her. That night, Owen couldn't sleep. The crickets sang. The wind tapped against the shutters, but all he heard was Maybelle's words. "He's making her marry Mr. Colby." The thought of Taylor in another man's arms made his chest ache like a wound that wouldn't close. He tossed and turned until the moon climbed high. Then he got up, pulled on his boots, and walked out into the dark. The creek shimmered silver in the moonlight. He sat on the same bench where he had waited for Taylor, running his fingers across the grooves in the wood. That was the place where they had dreamed, where they had promised, where her laugh had lit up the night like a lantern. Now it felt empty, but his resolve grew stronger there. "I won't let him take you from me," he whispered into the night. The next day, Owen went into town trying to hear more. He lingered near the blacksmith shop, the market, the tavern. Everywhere, tongues wagged about the upcoming wedding. "Mr. Colby sure got himself a pretty bride," one man said. "That girl's daddy finally catching a break," another muttered. Owen's jaw tightened until his teeth hurt. By sundown, he had learned one thing for certain. The wedding was set for 3 weeks' time. 3 weeks, that was all the rope he had before Taylor would be tied to another life. And Owen knew he had to cut that rope before it was too late. The days stretched long, heavy with secrets. Owen tried to work, but his hands moved without his heart. He chopped wood and forgot to stack it. He plowed the field and left lines crooked as a drunkard's walk. His mama noticed. "What's weighing you down, son?" she asked one evening. He almost told her everything, about Taylor, about their promise, about the wedding. But something in him kept quiet. His mama had enough burdens. She didn't need his heartache added to her basket. So he just said, "Nothing, Mama. Just tired." But at night he was never tired. He was restless. He started carving little plans in the dirt by lantern light, whispering them like prayers. He would sneak Taylor out. They would head south, cross the river, find work in a new town. He pictured her smile when they were free. That image kept him alive. But freedom was no simple thing. One evening, while walking past the tavern, he heard Mr. Colby himself bragging. "That girl's daddy owes me more than money. He owes me his word. And I don't let no man break his word." The men around him laughed, raising their mugs. Owen's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about love. This was about debts, power, and chains that stretched farther than he thought. And somehow Taylor was caught in the middle. A week passed before Owen finally found a chance to see Taylor alone. She was out by the well behind the church, drawing water. The late afternoon sun painted her hair gold, but her face looked pale, almost fragile. Owen stepped out from behind the fence, heart racing. "Taylor," she gasped, the bucket slipping from her hands, splashing water across the dirt. "Owen, you shouldn't be here. I had to see you." His voice cracked like a dry branch. Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. My daddy Hill. I don't care what he'll do. You promised me. We were supposed to leave together." She looked away, biting her lip. "I wanted to. Lord knows I wanted to. But they found out, Owen. They found out about us. And now I'm trapped." "Then let me break you free," he pleaded. Her hands shook as she grabbed his arm. "It ain't that simple. Mr. Colby's got papers, debts, promises. Daddy says if I don't marry him, we'll lose the farm. Mama's sick, Owen. My little brothers. They'll have nowhere to go." Owen felt the ground tilt under him. He wanted to scream, to curse, to tear down every wall that held her. But instead, he whispered, "Taylor, I can't lose you." Her tears spilled then, warm and silent. She touched his cheek for just a second. "Then don't come near me again. For both our sakes." And before he could answer, she hurried away, leaving him standing in the shadow of the church bell. The night after that meeting, Owen lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams of his room. Her words echoed in his mind. "Don't come near me again." But he couldn't obey them. Love had already branded his soul, and no warning could burn it out. He started thinking about Mr. Colby. The man was powerful, yes. Rich, yes. But he was also arrogant. Men like that made enemies, and enemies always left cracks in the walls they built. Owen just needed to find those cracks. The next day, he wandered into town and lingered at the tavern. He watched Mr. Colby's men swagger around, drinking too much, boasting too loud. He listened closely. That's when he caught a sliver of conversation. Two men grumbling that Mr. Colby hadn't paid them fair for hauling timber. "He's got gold for wedding rings, but not for honest work," one spat. A seed of an idea rooted in Owen's mind. If he couldn't break Taylor free with his hands, maybe he could with truth. Maybe he could show the town who Mr. Colby really was. But that meant digging deeper, sneaking into places he didn't belong, and risking his own neck. He didn't mind. For Taylor, he would risk it all. The next week, Owen began his quiet hunt. He walked miles to the edge of Mr. Colby's land, pretending to fish while watching the comings and goings. He noticed wagons loaded with goods, men slipping away at night, papers exchanged in whispers. Something smelled rotten. One evening, he followed two men down a back road. They carried crates, heavy and covered with tarps. When the moonlight hit just right, he saw bottles inside, liquor, strong and likely smuggled. His pulse quickened. Mr. Colby wasn't just a rich man with land. He was running illegal trade, using his money to buy silence. Owen returned home, heart pounding. He knew this was dangerous knowledge. But it was also power. If he could prove it, if he could show Taylor's father and the town what kind of man Colby really was, maybe, just maybe, the chains would snap. That night, as he carved another plan in the dirt with a stick, he whispered, "Hold on, Taylor. Just hold on. I'm coming for you." Owen's plan started with whispers. He couldn't march into town shouting Mr. Colby's crimes without proof. Folks might listen, but they wouldn't believe. Colby had money, power, and a smile slick as butter. So Owen began watching, listening, gathering crumbs of truth like a fox trailing scent. He visited the blacksmith who grumbled about unpaid work. He lingered near the river dock, hearing boatmen complain about crates disappearing without records. He slipped behind barns at night, watching Colby's men load wagons when they thought no one was looking. Slowly, the shape of Colby's secret life started to form. But Owen wasn't the only one watching. One night, as he crouched behind a stack of barrels near Colby's storage shed, he heard a twig snap behind him. He turned, heart pounding. A man stepped out of the shadows, tall, with a lantern in one hand and a pistol in the other. "Boy," the man said slowly, "you got no business snooping here." Owen's throat went dry. He could run, he could fight, or he could lie. "I was just looking for my lost dog," he blurted out. The man narrowed his eyes. "You don't even own a dog." Before Owen could answer, the man's grip tightened on the pistol. But then shouts came from the road. Another wagon was arriving, and the guard turned his head. Owen didn't wait. He bolted into the dark, branches slapping his face, breath burning his lungs. He didn't stop until the lights of Miller's Creek twinkled in the distance. That night, lying on his bed, heart still hammering, Owen understood something clear. He wasn't just playing with love anymore. He was playing with fire. The next morning, Owen's mama found him pale and jumpy at the breakfast table. "You look like you seen a ghost," she said. He tried to laugh it off, but the image of that pistol kept flashing in his mind. He wanted to tell her everything, but he bit it back. Some battles had to be fought in silence. Later that day, as he walked near the church, he saw Taylor. She was carrying flowers to the altar, her blue dress swaying in the wind. She looked like a trapped bird trying to sing. He waited until she was alone and whispered her name. "Owen," she hissed, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" "I found something," he whispered. "Colby ain't the man he pretends to be." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I've seen his men move in crates at night. I think he's smuggling liquor. If I can prove it, maybe your daddy will call off the wedding." For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Then it faded. "Even if you prove it, my daddy won't cross him. He owes Colby too much. If you push this, Owen, they'll hurt you." "I ain't scared," he lied. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I am." Their hands brushed, just for a second, before the church door opened and her father's voice thundered, "Taylor!" She jumped back like she'd been burned. Owen melted into the shadows. As she walked away, she glanced back at him. There was no need for words. Her eyes said everything. Hurry. That night, Owen made his boldest move yet. He sneaked out after midnight and headed toward Colby's property with a lantern covered by cloth. The moon hid behind thick clouds, making the world dark and quiet. He found the storage shed where he'd hidden before and slipped inside through a loose board in the wall. The air smelled like damp wood and whiskey. Owen's lantern revealed stacks of crates, each marked with false labels: farming tools, animal feed, lamps. But when he pried one open with his pocket knife, the light caught rows of dark bottles filled with liquor. Dozens, maybe hundreds. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what I need." He didn't have a camera or fancy gadgets, just his hands, his eyes, and his memory. So he carved a small mark on one of the bottles and another on the crate's edge, proof that he'd seen it with his own eyes. He was just about to slip out when he heard voices. "Check the shed," someone said. Owen froze. Lantern light flickered through the cracks in the wall. Footsteps crunched closer. His pulse thundered in his ears. He dove behind a stack of crates, pulling the cloth tighter over his lantern. The door creaked open. Two men stepped in. "Boss says someone's been snooping around," one muttered. Owen held his breath as they searched, boots thudding on the wooden floor. One man stopped inches from his hiding spot. The silence was so sharp, he could hear the drip of rain from the roof. Then, "Ain't nothing here," the other said. "Let's go." The door shut, and Owen didn't breathe until their footsteps faded. When he finally slipped back into the night, sweat soaked his shirt. But in his chest, fire burned bright. He had what he needed. The next day, Owen knew he had to act fast. Word was spreading that Mr. Colby's wedding to Taylor was moving up. 2 weeks away now. He needed to make the truth known before it was too late. He first went to the town sheriff, a round man with kind eyes but a lazy spirit. He told him everything he'd seen. The sheriff scratched his head and said, "Son, that's a mighty serious claim. You got proof." "I marked the crates," Owen said. "Come see for yourself." The sheriff sighed. "Colby's a big man in this town. You bring me proof, not stories." Frustration burned in Owen's chest. He left the office and went to the preacher. Surely a man of God would care. But the preacher gave him a nervous smile. "Owen, you best leave this be. The Lord will handle wicked men in his time. By then it'll be too late," Owen muttered, storming out. By sunset, he realized no one in power would help him. Colby had wrapped too many hands in his gold. If Owen wanted to break this, he'd have to do it himself. He climbed the hill overlooking town and watched the lights flicker on one by one. His jaw tightened. "Fine," he whispered. "I'll bring the truth to everyone's doorstep." Over the next few nights, Owen worked like a man possessed. He snuck onto Colby's property again and again, memorizing routes, counting crates, noting faces. He found out which nights the wagons left and which roads they took. He learned where Colby kept his ledger, a thick, leather-bound book in his office inside the big house. That ledger was the key. It would have names, dates, deals, all the proof anyone could need. But getting inside the house was a different kind of danger. Guards patrolled the porch. Dogs roamed the yard. Lanterns glowed in every window. Still, Owen's mind was set. He thought about Taylor's trembling hands, her eyes pleading at the church. He thought about their promise under the oak tree. If he had to crawl through fire to save her, he would. He spent one last night at the creek, planning every step. The frogs croaked, the wind rustled through the reeds, and the stars watched silently. Owen looked up and whispered, "Just one chance. That's all I need." Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. It sounded like a warning, but Owen only heard resolve. The night Owen chose to sneak into Colby's house was moonless, black as spilled ink. Crickets chirped low, and the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Owen moved through the shadows, barefoot, every step soft on the damp grass. He had studied the guards' routine for days. 2 men patrolled the porch. One always stopped for a smoke behind the barn at midnight. That would be his opening. He waited behind a cluster of bushes until he saw the glowing ember of a cigarette fade toward the barn. Then he slipped through the fence, heart thumping so hard he feared the dogs would hear. He carried nothing but a small lantern wrapped in cloth and his father's old pocketknife. The big house loomed ahead, its windows glowing faintly. He crept around the side, found the study window he'd marked days before, and pried it open with the knife. The hinges squealed softly, like a mouse crying. He froze. No footsteps, no shouts. He slid through. The study smelled like tobacco, leather, and old money. The ledger lay on the desk, thick, brown, tied with a string. He almost couldn't believe it was that easy. He grabbed it, stuffed it under his shirt, and turned to leave. Then a dog barked. Voices shouted. Lanterns flared to life. Someone had spotted movement outside. Owen dove through the window, rolled across the grass, and ran. Shouts grew louder. There, by the fence. A gunshot cracked the night, splinters flying from the fence post near his head. He didn't stop. He sprinted through the trees, branches whipping his face, lungs burning. He reached the creek and jumped in, letting the cold water swallow him. He floated downstream, clutching the ledger to his chest as the lights faded behind him. By the time he climbed out near Miller's Bridge, shivering and gasping, the sky was turning gray. He collapsed on the muddy bank, the ledger safe in his arms, and whispered, "Got it." The next morning, Owen hid the ledger under a loose floorboard in his room. He cleaned himself up, but the bruises on his arms and scratches on his face gave him away. His mama frowned. "Where've you been, boy? You look like you wrestled a thorn bush." "Something like that," he said. She shook her head but didn't pry. She'd learned long ago that some storms a boy has to walk through alone. All day, Owen's hands itched to open the ledger, but he forced himself to wait until night. When darkness wrapped the house, he lit a small lantern and opened the book. Page after page spilled out secrets. Dates, amounts of liquor, names of buyers, even bribes to local officials. Colby's signature curled across every page like a snake. "This is it," Owen breathed. "This'll bring him down." But then he saw something that made his stomach twist. Near the back of the ledger, in fresh ink, was a name he knew well, Taylor's father. Next to it, "Debt cleared upon daughter's marriage. Signed and witnessed." Owen slammed the book shut, heart pounding. Taylor wasn't just part of a plan. She was the payment. His hands shook with rage. It wasn't just Colby's greed. It was betrayal buried in ink. And now Owen had to decide how to use it. The next Sunday at church, Owen sat in the back pew watching Taylor from afar. She wore a white dress this time, simple but beautiful. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. Folks whispered around them about the upcoming wedding, just over a week away now. When the service ended, Owen slipped outside and waited by the path to the well. He caught her alone again, heart racing. "I got proof," he whispered. Taylor froze. "What kind of proof?" He pulled out a small torn page he had copied from the ledger, the one with her father's name. "This," he said, "this shows everything. The smuggling, the deals, and your daddy's part in it." Her face went pale. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. "We can stop this," Owen said. "If we show this to the sheriff, the preacher, the whole town, they won't let him marry you off to a crook." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't understand. If Daddy goes down, we lose the farm. Mama won't have medicine. My brothers won't eat." Owen stepped closer. "Taylor, you don't belong to that man. You belong to your dreams, to the promise we made. Let me fight this with you." She looked torn, her hands twisting in her skirt. Then softly, "If you do this, Owen, they'll come after you." He nodded. "Let 'em. I'm already in it." For the first time in weeks, her lips trembled into the faintest smile. "You always were stubborn. And you always liked that about me," he said. They stood there in the quiet, two hearts caught between fear and fire. The following days were a race against time. Owen copied more pages from the ledger, hiding them in different places around town. He gave one to Maybelle, trusting her nosy nature to spread the right whispers if anything happened to him. He left another under the preacher's door, another with an honest shopkeeper. If Colby tried to silence him, the truth would scatter like dry leaves in the wind. But Colby wasn't a fool. He sensed the winds shifting. His men patrolled more often. Rumors floated through town that a troublemaker boy was stirring things. One evening, as Owen walked home from the mill, a black wagon rolled up beside him. Two men jumped out, grabbed him by the arms, and dragged him into the woods. They threw him against a tree. One cracked his knuckles. "Boss says you been poking your nose where it don't belong." Owen spat blood from his lip. Maybe the boss should mind what does belong to him. The man's fist hit his gut like a hammer. He doubled over, gasping. "Next time," the other man said coldly, "it won't be your stomach we break." They left him crumpled in the dirt, bruised and bleeding. But even through the pain, Owen smiled faintly. If Colby was sending his dogs, it meant he was scared. And fear was the first crack in any wall. Taylor found him that night by the creek, sitting hunched over, blood dried on his face. She knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "What did they do to you?" He looked up, half smiling. "Nothing they won't regret." "Owen," she whispered, her hands trembling as she touched his bruised cheek. "I don't want you to die for this." He held her hands. "I don't want to die either, but I can't stand by while they chain you to that man. I'd rather get broken fightin' than live easy knowin' I did nothin'." For the first time, she leaned into him, forehead against his. The night wrapped around them, soft and heavy. In that quiet moment, the world disappeared. It was just Owen, Taylor, and the sound of the creek that had carried all their secrets. Then she whispered, "If we're gonna do this, we gotta do it right." At the wedding. He pulled back, surprised. She nodded, a fire in her eyes. "If we bring it out in the open, in front of everyone, Colby can't twist the story. He can't silence a whole town." Owen's bruised lips curled into a grin. "Now you sound like me. And you sound like trouble," she said softly. They both laughed quietly, the sound mingling with the night air, two souls ready to set a match to the darkness. That night, the sky was thick with clouds, but Owen's mind was even heavier. He sat on the same wooden bench where they had once whispered their secret plans. The wind was whistling through the trees, almost like it was trying to talk to him. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from the truth that had finally clawed its way into his heart. He had spent months waiting, hoping, praying that she would return with a reason good enough to heal the hole she left behind. But sometimes, the answers you want don't come wrapped in pretty words. Sometimes they come like broken glass under bare feet. And that night, Owen was ready to step on every shard. Taylor stood on the bridge that overlooked the railway track. It was the same bridge where she had last seen Owen's face in the moonlight. Her heart beat like a drum calling her home. She whispered his name once, then twice, but the wind carried it away before it could reach anyone's ears. For years, guilt had been her shadow. It followed her through crowded streets and quiet nights. She had run away for what she thought was love, but all she found was emptiness wearing a stranger's smile. Now she was back, older, quieter, but not at peace. Some promises don't die, they wait. Owen heard footsteps crunching on the gravel behind him. At first, he thought it was his mind playing tricks the way it had for years. But when he turned, his breath caught. There she was, Taylor. Her hair was shorter, her face a little thinner, but her eyes, those same eyes that once promised forever, were looking at him like time had never passed. For a moment, neither spoke. The night held its breath with them. Then, slowly, painfully, like a wound reopening, the words began to pour. She told him everything. The lies, the fear, the choices that chained her. Owen listened, not with anger, but with the quiet ache of someone who had already walked through the fire. The town's old church bell struck midnight. The sound rolled across the empty streets, echoing like a verdict. Owen stood up. He didn't move closer. He didn't move away. He just stood there, between past and future, between love and pain. Taylor stepped forward, tears slipping down her cheeks like rain off a porch roof. "I came back," she whispered. Owen closed his eyes. In that moment, he understood something deeper than love. Some promises are meant to break you before they build you again. He reached out, not to hold her, but to forgive her. And in that quiet, something unspoken was set free. The next morning, the sun rose over the small southern town, warm and golden, like it was trying to heal what the night had broken. Owen walked down to the railway station one last time. Taylor followed, a few steps behind. This time there was no bag, no letter, no waiting. Just two souls standing where a promise was once made and broken. The train passed, rattling the earth beneath their feet. Owen turned to her and smiled. Not the smile of a boy in love, but the smile of a man who had made peace with the ghosts of yesterday. Taylor's tears were soft, almost grateful. They didn't run away this time. They simply walked home.